What do you think is the deadliest predator in the history of the world? When you hear that question, your mind probably conjures up images of raw power and primal fear. You might think of the deep-sea terror of a great white shark, the bone-crushing jaws of a crocodile, or the apex strength of a lion. These are nature's heavyweights. They're the monsters that haunt our nightmares and star in blockbuster movies. And without a doubt, they are dangerous. But what if I told you that you're wrong? What if the most prolific killer on Earth isn't some roaring beast or a deep-sea hunter, but an animal you've probably swatted away without a second thought? The truth is, there is a predator out there whose body count is so staggeringly high, it makes the combined death toll of every war in human history look like a minor skirmish. Its reign of terror has been uninterrupted for millions of years, and it's still going strong today. To really understand the sheer scale of its lethality, we need some perspective. We need to look at the other contenders for the title. So let's count them down. Coming in at number 5, we have the hippopotamus. Don't let their goofy, almost cartoonish looks fool you. On the African continent, the hippo is widely considered the most dangerous large land animal. They are fiercely territorial, surprisingly fast, and armed with canine teeth that can grow up to half a meter long. While official numbers are hard to come by, estimates for human deaths per year vary widely, from around 500 to as many as 3,000. They often attack small boats, and a single bite can deliver a force of nearly 2,000 pounds per square inch, more than enough to crush a human body. They're a perfect example of why you should never judge a book by its cover. At number 4, we have an animal that inspires a more universal fear: the snake. Snakes are responsible for a huge number of deaths worldwide. The World Health Organization estimates that annual fatalities range from around 81,000 to as high as 138,000. And because many bites go unreported in rural areas, that number is likely a conservative estimate. The WHO also notes that for every person killed by a snakebite, about 3 more are left with permanent disabilities or amputations. The danger doesn't just come from one species. From the saw-scaled viper in Asia to rattlesnakes in the Americas, their venom is a complex cocktail of toxins that can cause everything from paralysis and uncontrollable bleeding to irreversible kidney failure. This brings us to number 3, an animal you might even have in your home right now: the dog. Now, this isn't about direct attacks. While those are tragic, they're relatively rare on a global scale. The real danger is rabies. The World Health Organization estimates that dog-mediated rabies causes around 59,000 human deaths every year. Over 95% of these cases are in Africa and Asia, and around half of the victims are children under 15. It's a devastating disease and a stark reminder that the biggest threat doesn't always come from a predator's teeth, but from the diseases they carry. For our number 2 spot, we have to look in the mirror. That's right, the second deadliest animal to humans is humans. In 2021 alone, there were approximately 458,000 homicides worldwide. That averages out to more than 50 people murdered by another person every single hour. And that number doesn't even include the devastating toll of organized conflict. When you factor in wars, the numbers become even harder to wrap your head around. Human violence is undeniably one of the greatest threats to our own species. And this is where our central question comes back into focus. We've seen the death tolls from some of the planet's most feared creatures and from our own hands. But there is one animal that surpasses them all, not just annually, but on a historical scale that is almost beyond imagination. The single deadliest animal in the history of humanity is the mosquito. Sounds almost absurd. This tiny, fragile insect, which you can end with a single slap, has killed more people than any other creature. Not just more than sharks or lions, but more than every other animal on our list combined. Annually, mosquitoes are responsible for an estimated 725,000 to over 1 million deaths. Malaria alone, just one of the diseases they carry, caused nearly 600,000 deaths in 2023. They also transmit other devastating illnesses like dengue fever, yellow fever, Zika virus, and West Nile virus. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention calls the mosquito, unequivocally, the world's deadliest animal. But the annual numbers, as shocking as they are, only tell a fraction of the story. The true impact of the mosquito is written across the entire timeline of human history. Historians and scientists estimate that around 117 billion humans have ever lived. In his book, The Mosquito, A Human History of Our Deadliest Predator, historian Timothy Winegard puts forward a staggering estimate that mosquito-borne diseases may have been responsible for the deaths of up to 52 billion of them. Let that sink in for a moment. If that number is anywhere close to correct, it means this one tiny insect could be responsible for the deaths of a massive portion of all human beings who have ever existed. Now, let's go back to our original question. Which predator has killed more humans than war ever did? We've just seen the mosquitoes' almost incomprehensible death toll. What about war? Estimating the total deaths from every war in history is incredibly difficult. Records are incomplete, and what counts as a war death can vary. Do you only count soldiers in combat? Or do you include civilians and deaths from war-induced famine and disease? Even with the most inclusive estimates, the total death toll from all wars throughout human history is generally placed somewhere in the range of several hundred million to perhaps a low billion. It's a horrifying number, but it pales in comparison to the billions of deaths attributed to the mosquito. The Illinois Department of Public Health states it plainly: mosquitoes and the diseases they spread have been responsible for killing more people than all the wars in history. It's not even a close contest. History is filled with examples that prove this point. During many conflicts, disease was a far more formidable foe than the opposing army. In the Spanish-American War, for instance, fewer than 400 American soldiers died in combat. In contrast, thousands died from diseases, with mosquito-borne illnesses like yellow fever and malaria being major culprits alongside other infections like typhoid. Napoleon's attempt to quell the Haitian Revolution was famously thwarted in large part not by rebels, but by yellow fever and malaria, which wiped out tens of thousands of his elite troops and crippled the French effort alongside the fierce resistance of Haitian forces. Mosquitoes aren't predators in the traditional sense. They don't hunt us for food like a lion does. Only female mosquitoes bite because they need the protein and iron in blood to produce their eggs. They are what scientists call a vector, a delivery mechanism. When a female mosquito bites an infected person or animal, it ingests pathogens. Those pathogens then multiply inside the mosquito, and when it bites its next victim, it transfers them through its saliva, continuing a deadly cycle that has played out for millions of years. So, the deadliest predator in history isn't a hulking beast with claws and fangs. It's not an enemy army with advanced weapons. It is a tiny, buzzing insect that has shaped human genetics, decided the fate of empires, and claimed a truly staggering number of lives. The story of the mosquito is a powerful lesson in perspective. It shows us that what we perceive as dangerous is often skewed. We fear the things that are dramatic, visible, and visceral, while the most persistent and lethal threats are often the ones that are small, quiet, and tragically common. The war against this tiny predator continues today, fought by scientists in labs and public health workers in the field. But despite all our progress, the mosquito remains a formidable and deadly foe. It is a humble, yet terrifying reminder that when it comes to survival on planet Earth, size doesn't always matter.